Okay, this is part two of the Intro to Sketching unit that I'm covering. And if you've forgotten how to get where we are, I'm just going to close this out and show you. So you jump into Onshape. Let's say, for example, it's a new night. You're coming in here, or a new day, new class. So you're going to open up Onshape. You're going to go to Lime High School. You're going to, where we're in the robot training folder, but it could be maybe in a class folder. I'm going to jump into the folder that I was working on, which was Intro to Sketching, and I have a file called Sketch Entities. I'm going to delete this one, by the way. I've got two that are called the same thing. Hopefully that doesn't give me grief. All right, if I go in here, you'll see that I followed. If you followed along with me on the last lesson, you should have a sketch that has lines and rectangles, a sketch that has circles and arcs, a sketch that has polygons, and then we had a sketch with some points on them. I'm going to turn all these sketches off again, and we're going to pick up where we left off by jumping into the Learning Center. And the Learning Center will remember where you left off, but sometimes I go back and forth. I'm going to go to New to Onshape and scroll down, and we were working on Intro to Sketching. In the last place we left off, this is right where we were, using sketch constraints. Now, again, if you're following my video, maybe you'll make this smaller and have my video up here so you can do both. Let's take a look real quick here. Okay, so let's start a new sketch. All right, and one of these is still on. There we go. Make a sketch. Again, we're going to put it on the front plane, and we're going to look normal to that. View normal to. I got here by right-clicking again, normal to. All right, and sketch 2 is my active sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line. She's drawing a line for construction, and it's a midpoint line, so I'm going to copy with her and come over here to go to construction and click and drag. Now, inferencing she was referencing is when Onshape notices where your mouse is, or notices another object or entity on your sketch and tries to connect to it. Notice there's a little horizontal symbol there that says if I were to click right now, this is going to ensure that this line is horizontal. All right. Just see. I do suggest that you listen to those as well. So she's going through here and waking up inference points. So let's see what she means by that. So I'm going to come in here and grab my regular line tool, make another construction line as she did. Oops, that one. Go back again. I'll select that and make it for construction. All right, notice that when I drew that line, it automatically snapped and it created these relationships to this. So I've got a vertical line that point is coincident with the midpoint of this line. These are all constraints that were built in just as I was drawing, but we can add our own constraints depending on what we want to do. For example, if I draw a circle out here, and I don't want that to be for construction, so I'm going to select it and make it a regular circle. If I click on this and click on this, I can say to Onshape that I want those to be, where's my coincident? Whoops. What happened? Don't know what happened. Not sure what happened there, but I just hit the undo command, got it back. I'm going to put a little hit D and put a dimension on this guy. Whatever dimension comes up, just go ahead and leave it for now. So now I'm going to hit the escape command to get out and select those 2 points. And let's see what happens if I hit coincident now. Notice it took that circle and put it right on the end of that line. So when I hover over that, it tells me that this is the center of that circle is coincident with that line. That's a relationship that I want. Let's draw some lines similar to the ones shown over here and try to talk about you know, these inferences and constraints and waking up inferences. So if I go grab my line command and start drawing, as I get over here, notice that it's waking up a couple of options for me. It's tangent, coincident, and tangent. I'm going to go with that, and that's going to make that point. If I hover over that now, it shows me that that's both tangent and coincident to that circle. All right, maybe that's what I wanted. All right, I can draw another line, and I'm going to draw a line off of here, come out, make it horizontal, and then as I draw next to this line, notice what happens if I get close to parallel. I get a little symbol here that says parallel, right? Come out here, draw something similar. Notice that it's referencing this horizontal line. Maybe I want that to line up with that point. All right, those are the inferences that she's referring to in that space. And if I click, you can see that it's highlighted in orange. All right, let's jump ahead. Adding constraints to existing geometry. So let's take a look at how to do that. So up here, these are all kinds of constraints that we can add to some existing geometry. Let's say, for example, I wanted this point to actually be on that point. We've already covered this one with coincident. It's going to move those two together. This whole thing jumped because we don't have any dimensions associated with that. Maybe we want this line and this line to be collinear, meaning at the on the same level. If we cruise through here, oh, we don't have a collinear in Onshape. Instead, we have, what do we have? I believe we can use the coincident as well. So if we pick a line and we pick a line, it'll make those so that they won't move. All right, I'll show you what I mean. If I grab this, they move together. So that would be, they are indeed collinear, but they're referring to that as coincident. They use coincident for a number of applications. All right, let's take another one. Let's say, for example, we wanted that line to not be angled. We wanted to make it vertical. So we could click on that line, come over here, and ensure that it's vertical. All right. What else do we have? Symmetric midpoint. Let's see what they're covering over here. I do think it's worth it to go through all of these available constraints because you will use them in your drawing throughout whatever you're trying to accomplish. So let's draw a couple of circles real fast, and we will cover the concentric one. Concentric means they share the same center point. So all we need to do here is hit the escape button, select these two circles, come up here and say concentric, and boom, they share the same center. All right, let's jump on to the next one. Parallel, I think we already covered, but if we draw a couple of lines that are not parallel, and I can select those lines by just doing a sweep like that and come in and say we want those lines to be parallel. And notice that this guy moved and became parallel to that one. That's the order of selection is going to set up that. All right, tangent is when two circles or a line in a circle touch at only one point. So we could say we want this circle to be tangent to that line, and let's see what happens if we do that. Now when we do that, you can't really see what happened, but if we extend this line, you now can see that that line is indeed tangent with that circle. Be interesting to see what happens if we select that tangent command and select these two now. Notice that if I extend this line, that these two, oh, I totally skipped lunch duty. Oh no. Sorry about that. I got so caught up in my CAD here, I skipped my lunch duty. Let's keep rolling though. Now I'm going to add, I'm going to draw two more circles real fast here and show you that tangent command again. So if we have two circles and we go and select those two circles and I, whoops, hit escape, undo, select those two, go up to tangent. This is tangent on the outside. Maybe I didn't want that. I'm going to undo and I'm going to take this circle and say, I want this circle to be tangent on the inside. So let's see what happens when I put them closer to being together like that. Whoops. That's interesting. There we go. Come on over here and hit tangent again. And notice that now those circles are tangent from the inside. To make it a little more obvious, I'm going to dimension this circle and make it a little bit smaller so you can see what I'm talking about. Tangent on the inside versus tangent on the outside. All right, if I select these two circles now and try to make them tangent, it should give me an error because I made this circle concentric with that circle, and they can't be tangent and concentric at the same time. Ooh, I guess they can if they don't have a size. They would be the same size then. Let me undo that and let me give dimensions to these first. So if I put a dimension on these two and then try to do that, now let's try to put that tangent command on, and notice it turns red, and you will get the red error occasionally, and what it's telling you is you cannot be tangent and concentric at the same time if you have a size associated with them. So I'm going to undo that and leave that out of there. What else do we have coming up here? Horizontal, that one I pretty much covered. Vertical we covered. Perpendicular, let's take a look at that. So if we have a line here and we drew a line that was, now if that line was drawn horizontally, by definition it would be perpendicular, so we wouldn't need to worry about it. But if I make a selection here and come up and say I want those to be perpendicular, because this one is vertical, it's going to make this one horizontal and make them both perpendicular. All right, next up is equal. Equal is a great command. Let's say, for example, you want these two lines to be equal length. I can select them both and boom, they're the same length. All right, if I put a dimension on it, they're both going to change. So if I change that to 40, they both grow to 40 because they're set to equal. I only need to dimension one of them. Midpoint. All right, midpoint constrains aligns to the midpoint of something else. So we select the midpoint, we select the line, we select the origin, and it moves it to the midpoint. So let's try that. Select the line. I'm going to select midpoint first. And it moved that, the midpoint of that line to the midpoint, or to the origin. It's kind of a poor example, but I'll keep going. All right, normal to. I'm going to start by drawing a circle and a line. And I'm going to select both of those, but hit my escape key, select those, and we're going to try the normal. And it's going to put that line in the middle of the circle, or make it so it passes through the middle of the circle. So they have a relationship. All right, next up is pierce. I'm going to skip that. Symmetric is a good one. All right, so in order to be symmetric, we need to have a construction line to work with. They have a couple of triangles drawn, so let's go ahead and grab our line command and draw two. Oops, I want to make it not for construction. Draw a couple of triangles. I'll change it later. All right, make a box around those. Make them normal. All right, let's go draw another triangle over here that's a little bit different. I'm going to inference that point. Okay, so with the symmetric command, it's going to move these lines equal distance from that center point, and then we can also make them the same. So they click the line, and the other line. So let's give that a shot. So I'm going to come up here, symmetric, select this first, select that, boom, boom, and it moves that line into the middle. I'm going to keep that again and select the line first and make these two and see what happens. All right, and we could keep going with that. Oops. All right. Notice as we move things, because they don't have any dimensions associated with them yet, whatever happens on the right is happening with the left. But it would be helpful if these were collinear. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and that. We know that collinear is not an option, but coincident is. We click on that, and now as we move these, we have similar triangles on either side. All right, next up is the fix. This is something you got to be careful with. A lot of students use this to try to finish fully constraining a sketch. You shouldn't use it that way, but what it does is it just holds something to a point. If you select everything and fix it, it's going to turn black, but that's not the way to constrain things. You may, however, want to fix a given point and have that stay there. So that's the fix command. You want to be careful using that one though. Curvature, this is one I haven't used before, but it essentially is creating like a tangent relationship between a spline, which we haven't covered yet, and a line. So let's go ahead and draw a couple lines and a spline and see what we come up with. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to come up here and grab my spline tool and draw a spline. And then I'm going to come back and grab my line. Oops, I didn't hit OK. Okay, I hit escape. I'm going to come back and grab my line tool. And let's see, just to make it look like theirs, I'm going to have another line that goes from here to here. Don't know how this is all going to work out, so let's try the curvature. All right, it's making that spline tangent to that line and that line. I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to drag this down and just see what happens. And you can see that makes a nice continuous curve there. All right, I believe that takes us through all of our constraints. All right, now we're going to get into dimensioning. We'll take a look at that next. All right, let's end this sketch and label this one constraints. Oops. All right, and I'm going to turn that off. Okay, to new sketch on the front plane again, and we're going to name that in a moment. It's going to be dimensioning. So let's start by taking a look at how we can dimension. So if you click and right after your second click, you get a white box. If you put a dimension in right away, it's going to dimension that right from the start. Probably should have made that a little bit bigger. Let's do this. I'm going to pull that closer to my origin, and I'm going to zoom way in just so that looks a little bit bigger. Get you an idea on how to move around a little bit. All right, let's draw another circle and show you another way to dimension. If I click and drag and then don't enter, I just hit enter and I leave it the default, it's going to put in whatever that number is. I can come back and double click on that and type in whatever I like for a dimension after the fact. All right, I'm going to draw a couple lines here and hit the escape command, grab the line command again here. Now, got to be careful because these lines that's coincident, but it's not tangent, and neither is that. Oh, that one is tangent maybe. Just to double check, I'm going to come in here just to review that other piece. I'm going to want to make sure that those are tangent because it's unlikely that you would not want those things to be tangent. You can see that that one's not tangent because it's going right through there. So I'm going to go ahead and make those guys tangent. Looks like these are already tangent and this is already tangent, so I'm good. Now, some other dimensions we can we can look at is if we want to go to the dimension tool, if you pick two lines that aren't parallel, it's going to give you an angle dimension. So we can put a number in there. We can get a distance dimension between these two circles by doing this. Oops, doesn't like that because of the angle dimension that I gave it. So we would have to, because these two circles are already defined and they're tangent, it won't let me do that. So that's being driven by that. I would have to either get rid of my angle dimension and go with this dimension, or I'd have to get rid of the size of one of my circles. All right, so I'll undo that. And that's really a reference dimension. So I'm going to click on that and delete it. So I'm going to get rid of this dimension for a moment, and if you click the dimension tool and you click your circles, you can get a dimension between them. Or if I click my dimension tool and click the outside of the circles, I can get a dimension on the outside if I wanted that instead. That's a bad number. All right. I guess that line was not tangent. There's a proof of that. So let's go back and fix that. Select those two, jump up to tangent. That looks a lot better. All right. So that's pretty much dimensioning. There's a lot of different ways. I probably should show you, if you draw a rectangle, to try to dimension that. The horizontal one's going to come up first, so I'm going to type in 150. As soon as I hit enter, it brings me to the next one, and I can type it right in. Or I can always say, you know what, I really wanted that to be 125. You can change it after the fact. Now, I'm going to pull these dimensions off of here by deleting them real quick and show you another way to put those dimensions in. You can either dimension to the line like this, or you can dimension by selecting two lines, and then it will give you a dimension that way. There are advantages and disadvantages to both depending on how you're working, so just want to make sure that you know how to put those dimensions in there. Okay, moving on. All right, again, close out of my sketch. We're going to rename that as dims because we did dimensioning, and we're going to start a new document. So I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to go make a new document. So close this document. I'm going to go back to my robot training folder, go into my folder, intro to sketching, and this is what we're going to take on next. Let me go back to the beginning. So we are going to, does this thing have a name? I'm not sure it has a name. Exercise, basic sketching. So we'll create a new document and call it basic sketch. I'm going to call it E1 for exercise 1. Hit create. Now, right from the get-go, it tells us that this document needs to be create a new document, begin a sketch. It didn't tell you the size though, or did it in the previous one? Well, we're going to do that right now because I don't like to get ahead in a document without setting my units. So up over here, we can go to workspace units, and we're going to change it to millimeters. All right, we'll just, all right, hit OK, and jumping ahead here, we're going to create, begin a sketch on the top plane, reorient the camera to normal. So sketch, top plane, right click, view normal to, we're at the top. I'm going to turn these off because I don't want to look at them. All right, and we're going to draw this shape. All right, so I'm going to draw a couple of circles to start, and notice that they picked the origin to start. It's always important to incorporate the origin in your drawing. So I'm going to come right in here, draw a circle, I'm going to draw another circle. Both of them are already connected to the origin. All right, I'm going to come up here and draw a construction line that also references the origin. They have their construction line crooked. I'm going to go ahead and draw it horizontal from the start. All right, I'm going to come up here, grab my line tool again, and I'm going to click on the 12 o'clock point here and come out. I'm going to hit escape, just select that, switch back to my regular line type. Grab my line command again. Going to reference this and draw that. Now, they don't show you this in this lesson, but we could draw this as a mirror and just draw half of it. And now I want it. Says add the needed constraints so your sketch horizontally and symmetric. All the lines are okay. I guess they want us to do that way, so we will do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and come down here and draw this. Notice I'm inferencing that. Come on over. I'm going to purposely draw these. All right. So I can make symmetric relationships. I'm just going to come in here and go ahead and make that vertical so that lines up, right? We can make all of these. If I select this and this, I might want to make those, make those equal. I can select these two, make those equal. I can select these two, make those equal. These two, make those equal. It's going to make my life a lot easier. Let's see what they have going on next. All right, so they want a 200 millimeter dimension for that. That looks good. All right, add in these other dimensions here. And let's see if this thing turns black. Ooh, it didn't like that. Why didn't it like that? Because I already had the equal command, so I didn't need to do that. All right, that can stay there gray. I'll put this dimension in next. And I won't need to reference that other one. If you did not make yours equal, you might need to put both of those in. All right, what else? This needs to be, this is a weird way to dimension this, but they dimension that as 30. Ooh, undo. Doesn't like something here. Let's figure out what it doesn't like. There we go. I accidentally dragged it to the other side. Okay, so that's 35. That would be a very odd way to do that. We got to put a couple of circles in here. And let's go ahead and do that. So they had made some construction lines first off of the midpoint of this. Notice that I'm referencing that midpoint. All right, and I'm going to show you an easy way to do this. We'll draw this guy. We'll grab our dimension tool. We'll go ahead and make that 25. This is, and then we will go ahead and make this guy 35. And now I'm going to show you a little trick here where we'll get that lined up to the other point. Whoops, I don't know what happened there. Okay, here we go. Let's try to wrap this thing up. So you'll notice mine is blue and theirs is black. And why is that? It's because I didn't add a dimension in here. I drew this as two different lines. They probably drew it as one and they set them all equal. This lesson's a little goofy because, first of all, I would never dimension this like this. I would dimension this as its own thing. I shouldn't say never, but it'd be unlikely. But I know what their intent was. Their intent was for this to be 150. So we can solve that one of two ways. We can either give this dimension 150, we could give this dimension 50, or we could give the diameter of this 150. Let's see if that will work first. So I'm going to grab my dimension tool. Let's try making that 150, and let's see if this all turns black. Boom. All right, again, undo. I could have also grabbed the dimension tool and said make this 50, and that would have turned everything black as well. Undo one more time, and I could have just dimensioned from here to here. Now, why do all of those work? They all work because of the relationships that exist in terms of the symmetry here, the tangent relationships with these. Doesn't really matter. I want to put another one of these down here, and this is a trick that they haven't covered yet, but we're going to use the mirror command. If you can't find the mirror command, you could just start typing in here, mirror, and there it is. And that's our mirror command. It says select a mirror line. I want this line to be that I'm going to mirror about. Now it says, what do you want to mirror? Well, I want to mirror that. Boom. I could mirror that too if I wanted to, but it's not really necessary. And now I got a fully defined, beautiful sketch. That wraps it up for this one, and I'm going to walk you through the next one in a bit.